Alrighty, what's going on, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Time Out with Doc and Caveman. You are here, as always, with Dr. Fantasy and my co-host, the Fantasy Caveman. Before we get rolling, I want to just remind everybody to make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel and make sure you subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts. You will get notified anytime we post any great NBA content. But today we are continuing to roll on with our NBA prospect profiles. We are recording our last five now. So today we're focusing on Scottie Barnes, 6'9", freshman forward from Florida State, has a 7'2" wingspan, and he is 227 pounds. As a freshman at Florida State, averaged 10.3 points, 4 rebounds, 4.1 assists, 1.5 steals. His percentages 50% from the field, 27.5% from three, and an outstanding 62.1% from the free throw line. Caveman, you better have a fantastic fun fact about my boy
Man,
Scottie Barnes.
the pressure is on with him and the facts. So yeah, so we'll talk about this guy when we get to talk about when we in our last one with Cade Cunningham. But he actually, when his final year of high school was at Mount Verde High School. It's a big high school, where NBA players go. But he actually was teammates with Cade Cunningham. They went to the same high school their final year, and would it shock you to learn that team with Scottie Barnes and Cade Cunningham went 25-0?
That's shocking.
Is it?
No.
Not really. So might as well get into his strengths here. There's when we talk about these top guys, there's gonna be a lot to like. And I already know this is one of Jordan's guys. So that's the number one thing that stands out is he plays with so much energy and effort. And what's unique about him when you see him play with all his energy and effort, it seems to translate to his teammates, also resulting in playing in high energy and effort. And that's just, that's something you'd love to see, is just a guy that where the energy is infectious, to where it gets all the other teammates hyped up. One of the other big things that you notice about him is he's a very versatile defender. He can guard most positions with relative ease, which we know in the NBA these days with all the small ball lineups and all that. With his position, he might have some of the best defensive versatility in this draft class. So I just get mesmerized by just like watching his effort and his highlights. That's just something. But yeah, that's the two things that really stand out to me right off the bat, is just his defensive versatility, and then the thing that you probably like about him a lot, and that's his just high energy and effort.
Yeah, and you kind of touched on something that I think is semi-important, which is how infectious his energy is, because you don't always necessarily see that. And I think that shows a high level of leadership, which as a young player, that's a trait that's really challenging to teach. But I really think that this is a guy that can turn into more than just a high energy bench player. He's a guy that can energize your entire, honestly, franchise, as much as that sounds dramatic, and it's to be seen if he can ever turn into an absolute superstar. But I think that kind of energy shows a lot of leadership. You mentioned the defensive versatility. I think that's also really important, and it comes with relative ease when you have a 7'2" wingspan. I mean, you're long enough to defend any position. I mentioned he's 227 pounds, which We've talked about a lot of these guys bulking up, but honestly, Scottie Barnes can, I mean, put on a few pounds, of course, but he's kind of NBA ready in terms of his physique. And that doesn't seem to be the case all the time. And we'll talk about another top 5 prospect where that is definitely not the case. But he's very athletic. He's very fluid in getting to the basket. So he uses that athleticism. The other piece that I do think is a little underrated with him is he is actually a really good playmaker. I don't think that's a part of his game that's necessarily talked about a lot, but for his size, for his length, for a guy that's not a primary ball handler, I mean, he still averaged 4 assists as a freshman. So that shows that he has that ability, and you'll notice a few times that he sets up his teammates in transition. So I think that he has the ability to not be a primary playmaker, but I think he plays a very well-rounded, team-oriented game on the offensive side of the ball and defensively. I mean, he can guard people one-on-one, and he's a good team defender. He really doesn't have many weaknesses as of right now as a team defender. So going into the weaknesses, we haven't talked about his offensive ability very much. So naturally, that's going to come up. But I don't see a lot of creativity as of right now in his ability to create his own offense. And I think he's one of those cases where he's a guy relying on his athleticism. So he gets to the basket at the college level, kind of uses his speed to get to the cup. But at the next level, you're going to have to be a little more creative. We've said it time and time again, but everybody is a pretty high level athlete in the NBA. You're not going to be able to just, finesse or use that athleticism to get to the basket easily. So I think he's going to have to get a little more creative there. Shot selection isn't always there as well, which you can see by his 3-point percentage is only 27.5%, and he's a terrible free throw shooter. With my sarcasm in the beginning, he only shot 62% from the free throw line, which can be concerning. So I would say definitely his outside shooting as a whole is really concerning. And that's the difference, though. And whenever we talk, I'm not going to compare him to Kawhi later on, like I did before. I feel like I talked about Kawhi enough in our Kuminga episode. But the reality is there's a lot of guys that are very energetic athletes, great defenders. But the difference between Kawhi and players like this is whether or not they're able to develop offensively. So we'll see if he can consistently learn how to shoot the basketball. Otherwise, he's just going to be a high level, high energy guy that relies on being more creative if he develops that and getting to the basket rather than having a consistent jump shot.
Yeah, you hit on a lot of the free throw. The free throw percentage is concerning, especially given the fact that he also doesn't shoot the three very well, like you said, at around 27%. So I don't know if it's necessarily a complete overhaul that he needs on his jump shot, but it definitely needs a good amount of work. And then, like I said, he's not great at creating his own shot either. That might be something that might be something that holds him back from, being a key piece and being a key piece to a starting lineup versus, kind of like the instant like offense and just effort off the bench. I think that's the thing for me that might really hold him back more than anything, because you can become a better free throw shooter. This isn't a DeAndre Jordan situation or a Giannis situation. Like I feel he has the ability, and with the fact that he plays with a lot of energy and effort, I do believe once he gets to the next level that he's gonna hit the gym and he's just gonna end every practice with like 200 free throws or something like that. And I think he'll ever be like a 90% free throw shooter, but I could see him getting to a respectable 70, 75 range where he's not a liability at the line.
Yeah, and realistically, I think that's what he is going to have to do. I mean, so let's go to ideal fits then. So we're getting into guys that are potentially going the top 5 when we talked about Kuminga last time. I mean, it seems like the consensus here is in some order the top 5 is going to be Scottie Barnes, Kuminga, Suggs, Mobley, Green, Cunningham. That's the top 6. And it seems like that's the consensus
Yeah.
with a lot of scouts. So we're getting the Barnes, who isn't always mocked in the top 5, but you definitely at least have to recognize there's a potential for him to go in the top 5. So number 6 seems to be the most likely landing spot as of right now with Oklahoma City. I mean, I like that pick for Oklahoma City just because for a franchise that's kind of starting from the bottom, this is the kind of energy and kind of leader and high character guy that you can, is he going to be the primary scorer for your franchise? Probably not, but he's a guy that brings that attitude and energy that you really want to see from an organizational standpoint. So I think
someone other than Shy to bring that kind of energy to him.
I could also see him going to Toronto at number 4 if he was going to crack the top 5. That's where I think would be the most. I mean, Orlando needs everything, so who knows? Maybe Orlando, but
Orlando just.
but
huge on Orlando because I don't think I like Scottie Barnes, but I don't see him as having that like bona fide superstar potential, and that's what Orlando needs.
Yep. Yeah, definitely. The last one I had if he was to fall a little bit, I had the Kings at number 9 as well.
Yep.
So.
Yep. I mean, I could see there's zero chance he falls out of the top 10. But I do think there's a chance. I do think there's a chance he slips out of the top 5 or 6. If he does, he'll go somewhere in 7 to 10. But he'll still most likely be a top 6 pick.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I don't think honestly. I would say I can't see him falling past Orlando at number 8 because they pick a second time in the top 10. Now, let's say they get a guy with superstar upside with their 5th pick. Number 8's we're like, okay, we can afford to take a guy that maybe he's not a superstar, but he has star potential and brings the right attitude and energy. So I can't definitely top 10 though, because New Orleans, I don't think there's a chance that he would slip by.
I know that it's a lock that Orlando. If I'm Orlando, I'm trying to package both of those picks to move up into the top into the second or third spot.
The only reason I'm probably not is because they need everything. So I think that I'd rather have 2 potential star players just to round out that entire roster. But it really depends on your organizational philosophy at the end of the day. So it's not a bad move.
We don't know what Orlando's organizational philosophy is at this point.
Hey, I mean, they ended up with 2 top 10 picks. That at least leaves you somewhere and gives you, if they make 2 good picks here, that changes your I mean, they could be a championship contender if 2 of these picks end up being superstars. I mean, that's a reality.
Guys that they pick up will instantly become the 2 best players on that team.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, yes. I mean, that's not saying much, but yeah, I mean, it's true. So let's go to some NBA comparisons then. A few that I saw Draymond Green quite a bit for him, which I thought was an interesting one. And like I said, that's where I think that maybe, and it was hit or miss. Some people weren't talking about his playmaking enough, in my opinion. I mean, Draymond's a fantastic playmaker, and I think that's Scottie Barnes where he's underrated. So I think that's a decent comparison. Tobias Harris was another one for me. He's an underrated playmaker as a wing. He's been a better 3-point shooter the last few seasons, but I think people forget he wasn't a very good 3-point shooter coming out. So it's more Tobias Harris a few years ago rather than what Tobias Harris is now. My favorite one, though, is one of my boys in the NBA. Maybe you know where I'm going with this, but it's Jimmy Butler. I think that he has a lot of similarities to Jimmy Butler, and that's why I loved when you brought up his attitude and energy was infectious, because nobody's more known for that in the NBA than Jimmy Butler. Jimmy Butler still to this day does not have a very good jump shot. has never been the greatest free throw shooter, but it's been the energy. He's learned to be more creative and getting to the basket throughout his career, and that's what Jimmy Butler relies on, is more of his slashing and getting to the basket rather than making jumpers. So I think there's a lot of similarities, and that's why I don't mind it from the Magic. Let's say they get a superstar player at number 5 and then Jimmy Butler at number 8. I mean, that's a really nice draft. So that's where I
Yeah,
see his upside. I really like the Jimmy Butler one.
I like the Jimmy Butler one because Jimmy Butler, I don't know how hurt you're gonna be by this, Jordan, but Jimmy Butler's not a superstar.
Yeah, I know. I guess.
That's what I'm saying. Scottie Barnes doesn't have superstar potential, but he has Jimmy Butler potential,
Yeah.
which is pretty high.
A top 30 player in the league?
I mean, he has that kind of potential. So I was kind of this is one I personally struggled with a bit because I instantly thought of Draymond, and then everybody else said Draymond. So I was like, God damn it! So like there goes that. So I kind of had to go back a little old school. What do you think about shades of Scottie Pippen?
Oh my gosh, you're going way back. But yeah, I mean, Scottie Pippen was also a very underrated playmaker too.
So a little shades of Scottie Pippen. So and then guy playing in the finals. I see some Giannis in him. Oh, a little. I mean, his free throw shooting, kind of similar.
That is not praise. You're comparing his weaknesses to Giannis. That's not good.
Hey, but that's fair. Giannis is a superstar, so for your weaknesses to be the same as a superstar's weaknesses, maybe that is praise. But Giannis as well. You see, Giannis is for his size and ability. He's also a quite versatile defender. Giannis, energy and effort. I mean, one of the few guys in the league that's 100%, 100% of the time. So I'm just thinking in terms of his versatile defensive ability and just his energy and effort, that what makes me think of Giannis a bit too. But the problem with Scottie Barnes is I struggled to find a low end comparison. I settled on Kyle Anderson. I don't like that at all. I think his floor is better than Kyle Anderson, but
Nicholas Batum.
Yeah, but Batum has been very underrated his whole career, pretty much. Yep. Aside from the last couple in Charlotte where he was not good, but yeah, Batum. I can see. I like Batum as a low end.
That was my low end, but I only wanted to talk about Jimmy Butler, so. So, okay, I think that's it on Scottie Barnes. We're going to keep rolling through our top 4 coming up here. So make sure you guys tune in, subscribe, and we'll see you for those.
Yep.